IFP founder and traditional prime minister to the Zulu nation, Prince Mangosuthu Buthelezi, passed away this morning at the age of 95, and we've been bringing you reaction and views and opinions and thoughts at this time on the life and times of Mangosuthu Buthelezi. Joining us now, we have historian, well-known historian, Professor Pitika Ntuli, joining us virtually from here in Johannesburg. Prof, thank you so much for your time this morning. As always, we've been speaking all morning about how one has to take a nuanced look at the complex life and really full and vast life lived by Mangosuthu Buthelezi. What are the first thoughts that come to mind when you think of the legacy that he leaves behind?
For me, he was a man of integrity who spoke his mind, who had a very broad vision of bringing South Africa close together, linking with the ANC, the PAC, UDF, but of course our toxic politics tends to put us into little kind of boxes. But I think he goes beyond those boxes. But what I remember most is about the contribution that him and his family, dating from the 19th century, contributed to the strength of the Zulu nation through its most difficult times. Even at the time when the defeat of the Brits were there, they also played a very significant role. I would also remember him right now that he's going up at a very crucial time, which I don't think he would have really loved to see the Zulu nation in a state in which it is right now, with all the disputes, with all the allegations of drug abuse, and all of those issues would have troubled him a very great deal. But also, as an ordinary human being, my wife and I always laughed at him when we see him in the barrier coming out of Spa with a plastic. When other people are driven in cars with walk, we said, "No, you are an important person. Why do you walk up onto walk like you are actually doing?" Very easy to to get along with, and very strong in his own beliefs.
And very strong in those inner beliefs that often used to put him at odds with other political beliefs at the time. I was just speaking to my colleague Mabutu Ngobo as well, who pointed out, for instance, in history when Mangosuthu Buthelezi decided that he and the eNCA Freedom Party that he had founded was not going to join the armed struggle for various reasons. In your opinion, what impact did his bloodline, his personal history, and in terms of his family, what impact did that have on how he led then eventually, both as somebody who founded a movement that then became a political party?
Yeah, but I mean, we can say that anything that he was at loggerheads. Once we're in politics, you've got different camps. You have got to be caught up in loggerheads. You know that it was only himself. I think his upbringing, the nation and the culture that had actually brought him up, which always emphasized the issues of integrity and caring and love. It's just what really pushed him ahead, rather than the other politicians who were just nice, good, rich, educated, but not actually really founded on very strong, cultural and very ethic lines. But he was very different, in the sense that he believed in the legitimacy of the Zulu nation, its history, its culture, its belief systems, and everything. That, more than anything else, kind of guided his involvement in politics, his disagreements with people. That was one of the things that were very fundamental to him.
We were told by our colleague in KZN, who covers that region so well for us, Sipamandla Goge, that in one of his last few conversations with Mangosuthu Buthelezi, he again expressed his view that he had hoped that by the time that he left this earth, that the African National Congress and the ANC somehow would find their way back to each other. What did you make? Because we know there are vast historical links between the two organizations, but for the longest time they have not seen eye to eye, they were not on the same page in various matters. What do you make of that relationship? And did you think that Prince Mangosuthu Buthelezi was wishful in thinking that the parties could find each other again?
I think he was very realistic, and I thought he really very believed in it, because he believed that the members of the ANC would be very more committed to South Africa and would really want to. But let's take just a step back. Mangosuthu was also, to a very large extent, influenced by the Madiba version. That is why he wanted also the ANC and the IFP, to come together. I remember when we were actually in exile, he met up with the members of the PAC and all the other organizations, because he sought up that one unity of one country, because once we, get into a state in which we find ourselves right now, he's actually, proven right that the links between the ANC and this right now in the time of coalition, that was also on the agenda. But then he made up demands that I think the ANC, could not, accept. He could make demands because it was IFP and they were the people, but the feeling to many people was that the ANC, in a state in which it is, with a lot of, factions, then you get yourself in a very intractable, position. It's so sad that at least he died without achieving, something that he so dearly it needed and wanted and knew that the country required.
We've obviously will spend a lot of time both looking at his role in the political realm as well as in his very specialist and important role walking side by side with the various kings that the Zulu nation has had. Most recently, the new king who was taken up the throne. But even that relationship has been reported to be a little bit tense for various reasons. What do you make of the legacy he leaves behind there in terms of his role with the Zulu nation and very strong links and relationship to the monarch of the time of the last few decades and the monarch that he leaves behind now?
For me, that is one of the most saddest things, because he was very close to King Velitini. They would have their own differences, but they would actually resolve them in a way. But that now he has got to preside now with a new king that is in it, that to all intents and actually purposes is not actually promoting the very strength of the very Zulu nation. A lot of stuff about him coming up in on social media, and some of the people that met him. That's such a great nation that Mangosuthu's parents, from his great-grandparent Mnyama, and he was also the prime minister to King Qetwayo, during the Anglo Zulu War, and with all the other people, and it's also blood related in it, to find that the kingdom has ended up in the hand where it is exactly handed in here, to a very large extent, active. And already there was also the issue about the Ngonyama Trust and what the king wanted and what he didn't really want. But all I can say that to me, he was a man of integrity, personally and politically.
Okay, Mabutu, would you like to ask the Prof a question?
Yeah, historian asking another historian a question.
I'm here for it.
Maybe you can ask the Prof a question or ask me a question, because I don't know what to ask the Prof, because he has almost said all the things that perhaps I think need to be covered. But Prof, if I may ask, what do you think of Prince Mangosuthu Buthelezi, especially on his role during the transition period from the apartheid government, especially during the CODESA talks in the early 1990s, to the democratically elected government. I know at some point there was a time where his political party, the IFP, was kind of like withdrawing from those CODESA talks and talks about talks. And then later on, I think it was a scholar from Kenya, Professor Washington Okumu, who convinced Mangosuthu Buthelezi and his IFP to go back to the negotiation tables. If I'm not mistaken, by few months or few weeks before the 1994 election, then the IFP was there on the ballot. That's why if you look at the ballot paper of 1994 election, you'll see that the IFP is last there on that ballot. What can you tell us about that period of transition up to the democratically elected government, about his role in Mangosuthu Buthelezi?
Oh, yes. I mean, we know what happened at CODESA. We are where we are right now at CODESA. There are a number of issues that should have been raised that were not actually raised. He was raising questions that were very difficult for a number of other people that were actually involved in these talks. Now, you just remember that CODESA introduced a number of very good things: truth and reconciliation had to be there, the RDP and all. But behind it all, these were just simply words. That's why people withdrew. He was able to see through the discussions that there was not much honesty and truthfulness that he needed to see being articulated there. But he had to go back there and finally agreed to take up a position in a government, and we had hoped that then the relationship with the IFP will build, and then with the PAC, as Mandela wanted everybody to be actually on board, will come. So at a separate and a different kind of a CODESA could take place, post independence. But none, alas, once people get power, your priorities change.
Okay, we're going to leave it there. Thank you so much for your insight. As always in education, speaking to you, Professor Pitika Ntuli, joining us virtually from here in Johannesburg. We thank him for his time. Mabutho Ngobo, historian and colleague of ours, joining us here, and we'll have more from him.